It was one of those moments no husband ever wants to face. My wife of years, Amanda, casually announced over dinner that she planned to start dating other men, beginning tonight. I found myself in the dimly lit kitchen of our home in Boulder, Colorado, clutching a glass of Bolvany whiskey, feeling utterly disoriented. For minutes, I didn't take a sip. Instead, I stared blankly at the wooden table, the world around me seemingly frozen. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. I couldn't think, couldn't process. A deep, gnawing ache consumed me, a kind of raw pain that no amount of alcohol could numb. Rumors had reached me over the years, husbands blindsided by wives wanting to explore. But I'd always dismissed them as exaggerated gossip, the kind of thing that happened to other people, couples with shaky foundations. Not us. Amanda was supposed to be my partner, my cornerstone, the person I could always count on. But now, the woman I loved was casually tossing aside everything we had built. Earlier that day had been completely ordinary. I had left work at whistling as I walked through the door of our suburban home, ready to unwind. But there was Amanda, sitting at the kitchen island with a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon, her posture calm, but her expression unreadable. Her long auburn hair, pulled back into a loose braid, framed a face that had always captivated me. Something about her demeanor felt different, but I shrugged it off. I grabbed a bottle of whiskey, poured myself a few fingers, and sat across from her. Amanda was watching me with an intensity one couldn't quite place, a faint smile playing on her lips. "What's on your mind?" I asked, trying to keep the tone light. Her smile faded slightly, and her eyes locked onto mine. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady, "do you think I've been a good wife all these years?" The question threw me. Amanda wasn't one for self-reflection, at least not the kind that she openly voiced. I set my glass down, taking a moment before answering. "Yes," I replied honestly. "I'd say you've been a great wife and an incredible mother." She tilted her head slightly, considering my response. "And don't you think I deserve some credit for that?" The air shifted. Something about the way she said it made my stomach churn. "Of course you do," I said cautiously, trying to gauge where this was heading. "Amanda, what's this about?" Taking a deep breath, she leaned back in her chair, her tone as calm as a placid lake. "Tonight, I want to go out with someone else." The words hit me like a brick to the chest. My grip on the whiskey glass tightened as my mind reeled. "Excuse me," I stammered. Her expression remained composed. "Ethan, after years of being only yours, I think I've earned the right to explore. I'm now, and I know I won't look or feel like this forever. I want to know what it's like to have choices again." My jaw dropped. I sat there, frozen, as her words sank in. The woman I had devoted my life to was telling me she wanted to date other men, casually, as though discussing plans to meet a friend for coffee. Finally, I managed to find my voice. "Amanda, are you seriously telling me you're going on a date tonight? While you're still my wife?" She nodded slowly, almost sympathetically. "Yes, Ethan, and I think we'll both be better for it." Amanda rose from her chair, her confidence unwavering, and headed upstairs. I sat there, my mind racing, unable to process what had just happened. Moments later, I heard her rummaging through her closet. When she reappeared, it felt like the air was sucked out of the room. She had changed into a sleek, navy blue dress that hugged her figure in a way that turned heads, with a high slit that revealed just enough leg to spark anyone's curiosity. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor, and she carried herself with a poise that reminded me of the woman I fell in love with decades ago. She had applied just enough makeup to highlight her almond-shaped hazel eyes and wore her hair in a loose updo that made her look effortlessly elegant. "Where are you going dressed like that?" I demanded, standing abruptly. "Out," she said simply, grabbing her clutch from the counter. I moved to block the door. "This isn't happening. You can't just walk out on me like this." She gave me a measured look, her lips curling into a small, almost pitying smile. "Ethan, you're not going to stop me. Let's be real, you're not divorcing me over this. Where would you even find someone like me again? And let's not forget the kids. They'd blame you for breaking up the family." I stared at her, stunned by her arrogance. Her words weren't just dismissive, they were calculated. She leaned in, as if to kiss me goodbye, but I turned my face away. For a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of hurt in her expression, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Maybe I'll come back," she said, her voice cool before slipping past me and out the door. The silence that followed was deafening. I didn't move for a long time, my thoughts spiraling between disbelief, anger, and a creeping sense of helplessness. The image of her walking away, without hesitation, without even glancing back, was burned into my mind. That night, as I sat alone in the living room, nursing the whiskey that had long gone warm, memories of our early days together came flooding back. Amanda had always been striking, even in high school. She had a natural beauty and confidence that made her stand out in any crowd. I was a lanky, awkward kid trying to find my place in the world, and she was the girl every guy wanted but few dared to approach. It wasn't until our senior year that I mustered up the courage to ask her out. To my surprise, she said yes, and we quickly became inseparable. But Amanda's appeal didn't go unnoticed by others. She had a magnetic presence that drew people to her effortlessly. There were whispers about other guys, flirtations, moments that made me question my place in her life, but I convinced myself our bond was stronger than her allure. Looking back now, I wondered if I'd been blind all along. Hours passed, and I remained rooted to the spot. At some point, I dozed off, only to be jolted awake by the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. The clock read AM. I sat up, my pulse quickening as Amanda walked through the door. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and her makeup smudged, but she didn't seem the least bit ashamed. Instead, she looked content. Smug even. "How was your night?" I asked, my voice heavy with sarcasm. She didn't even flinch. "You didn't have to wait up," she said, slipping off her heels. I stood, setting my empty glass down with a bit more force than necessary. "Let me make something clear, Amanda. If this is how it's going to be, I'm done waiting for you." She stopped halfway up the stairs and turned to look at me, her expression unreadable. "Good night, Ethan," she said simply, disappearing into the bedroom. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, I heard Amanda moving around upstairs. After a night out, she'd stumble into the kitchen in her robe, hair a mess, and make some excuse about being exhausted. But today, she came down fully dressed in a crisp white blouse and tailored pants, her hair neatly styled and makeup refreshed. "Did you leave me anything for breakfast?" she asked nonchalantly. "There's coffee," I replied, motioning to the pot. "You can handle the rest yourself." She poured herself a cup and leaned against the counter, her eyes meeting mine. I took a breath, deciding now was as good a time as any to address the elephant in the room. "Where do you see this going, Amanda? Because I can't keep living like this." She raised an eyebrow, her expression calm yet defiant. "Ethan, like I told you last night, I'm not looking for love with anyone else. That's what we have. But I crave variety, something different. I just want to enjoy life while I still can. After that, it'll be back to you and me, growing old together like we planned." Her words felt like a punch to the gut. "So this is just about variety for you?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. "And you think I'm supposed to sit here and wait for you to get it out of your system?" Amanda shrugged. "It doesn't have to be all or nothing. If you need to explore as well, I'm fine with that." I stared at her in disbelief. "You can't be serious." She sipped her coffee. "Actually, I am. If it helps, I could set you up with someone. Natalie, my co-worker, has mentioned she finds you interesting." "Natalie?" I repeated, almost laughing at the absurdity of it all. "Amanda, this isn't some twisted trade-off. This is our marriage. Ethan, I'm not asking for your blessing. I'm just being honest with you. But I'll respect your decisions if you can respect mine." Her words hung in the air, each one cutting deeper than the last. Amanda's nonchalance left me reeling. I couldn't fathom how she could speak so casually about something that was tearing me apart. Before I could respond, she glanced at her watch and grabbed her bag. "I have a meeting in town. Let's talk later," she said, her voice dismissive. I didn't stop her. I let her walk out the door without saying another word. But as soon as it closed behind her, I felt an overwhelming wave of anger, sadness, and frustration. The woman I thought I knew was a stranger to me now. The following week, Amanda skipped her usual Friday night outing. We had dinner together as a family with our daughters, Emily and Lauren, who were home for the weekend. Emily was studying law in New York City, while Lauren had just started her second year at the University of Denver. They noticed the tension between us almost immediately. "Everything okay, Dad?" Lauren asked, looking between Amanda and me. Before I could respond, Amanda chimed in, "We're just figuring some things out. Nothing you girls need to worry about." Her tone was light, almost dismissive, as if the cracks in our marriage were no bigger than a small misunderstanding. But Emily wasn't convinced. "Mom, you've been acting different lately," she said, narrowing her eyes. "You're not even trying to hide it." Amanda sighed, setting her fork down. "Emily, not everything is your business. Your father and I are adults, and we'll handle things our way." Emily didn't back down. "I'm not blind, Mom. You've been going out more than usual, and Dad's barely said 2 words tonight. What's going on?" Amanda's expression hardened, but before she could respond, I spoke up. "Your mother and I are going through some changes. That's all I'm going to say for now." Lauren looked at me with concern, but Emily seemed dissatisfied. She pressed her lips together, clearly holding back words she wanted to say. After dinner, Emily cornered me in the living room while Lauren and Amanda cleaned up. "Dad, are you two splitting up?" she asked bluntly. "No, Emily," I said, though the word felt uncertain even as I said it. "We're trying to work through things." She studied me for a long moment before nodding. "Okay, but if there's something I can do, let me know." That Monday, I finally made an appointment with a divorce attorney. I wasn't ready to pull the trigger, but I needed to understand my options. Amanda's behavior wasn't just a phase. It was a declaration of independence at the expense of our marriage. I couldn't sit idly by while she tore apart everything we had built. Later that evening, Amanda came home late again, her hair slightly messy and the faint scent of cologne clinging to her clothes. She didn't bother offering an excuse, and I didn't ask. Instead, I handed her an envelope with the preliminary divorce papers I had picked up that morning. "What's this?" she asked, her brow furrowing as she opened it. "It's not final," I said, keeping my voice steady, "but I need you to know where I stand." Her expression flickered surprise, then anger, and finally what looked like fear. She asked, her voice rising. "I'm giving you a choice," I replied calmly. "Either you end this, or we end us. I won't live like this anymore." Amanda stared at the papers for a long moment before placing them on the counter. "I need some air," she muttered, grabbing her coat and heading back out the door. The next morning, I decided to take a walk through Pearl Street Mall, one of Boulder's most vibrant spots. The fresh air and bustling energy of street performers, cafes, and local shops offered a brief reprieve from the chaos in my mind. As I sipped on a cappuccino from a local coffee shop, I ran into Jessica, an old friend from high school I hadn't seen in years. Jessica had aged gracefully, her warm smile and bright blue eyes as inviting as ever. She was in town visiting family and suggested we grab lunch. Turned into a deep, honest conversation about life, love, and missed opportunities. "Ethan, you've always been the kind of guy women want to keep," Jessica said, her tone gentle but firm. "If Amanda can't see that, maybe she's not the right person for you anymore." Her words hit harder than I expected. For the first time in months, I felt seen, appreciated for who I was rather than overlooked. We parted ways with a promise to keep in touch. But as I walked home, her words stayed with me. They stirred something inside me, a realization that I deserved better than the crumbs Amanda was offering. That evening, Amanda returned home earlier than usual. She walked into the kitchen, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and determination. I was at the counter, pouring myself a glass of water when she spoke. I raised an eyebrow, but gestured for her to sit. "Go ahead." Amanda sat down, her fingers tracing the edge of the counter. "I've been thinking about what you said, the papers," she began, her voice faltering slightly. "I don't want to lose you, Ethan. I don't." Her words should have brought relief, but instead, they felt hollow. "Then why do you keep pushing me away?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. She hesitated, her eyes avoiding mine. "It's not about pushing you away. It's about, I don't know, finding myself again. I've spent so much of my life being a wife, a mother, that I lost sight of who I am." "That's not an excuse for what you're doing," I countered. "You could have talked to me, Amanda. We could have worked through this together." She looked up, tears glistening in her hazel eyes. You're right. I should have. But I'm scared, Ethan. Scared of growing older, of feeling invisible. I didn't know how to handle it. I sighed, setting down my glass. Do you think I don't feel those things too? But I made a choice to stick with you, through all of it. And I thought we had an understanding. I thought we were in this together. Amanda reached out, placing a hand on mine. I want us to be. I'm just trying to figure out how. Her touch was familiar, but it didn't carry the comfort it once had. I pulled my hand away gently. You need to decide what you want, Amanda, because I can't keep doing this. I won't. The following weekend, Emily invited both Amanda and me to brunch at the Sunrise Bistro, a cozy spot downtown. It was her way of helping us reconnect, though I suspected she just wanted to keep an eye on us. Lauren joined as well, and for a while, we managed to maintain polite conversation. But it didn't take long for tensions to surface. So, Dad, Emily began, her fork poised over a stack of pancakes. How's everything going? Have you had any time to yourself lately? The question was innocent enough, but the glance she shot at Amanda wasn't. I've been keeping busy, I replied, offering a tight smile. Lauren chimed in, her voice hesitant. Mom, are you still working late at the office? Or has that calmed down? Amanda's expression tightened, and I knew she felt the weight of their unspoken judgment. Work's been steady, she said curtly, sipping her coffee. The conversation shifted to safer topics, school, travel plans, but the underlying tension lingered. By the time we left the bistro, Amanda's mood had soured. I know what they're doing, she said as we walked to the car. They're picking sides. They're trying to understand what's going on. I corrected her. And honestly, so am I. That evening, Amanda received a text from Natalie. It was a short, cryptic message, drinks at 8. Let's talk. Amanda hesitated, but eventually grabbed her coat and left. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but something about her departure felt different. For the first time, I didn't feel anger or betrayal, just resignation. Hours later, she returned, her eyes puffing red as if she'd been crying. Without saying a word, she went upstairs. I waited, unsure whether to follow, but curiosity eventually won. I found her sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at an old photo of us from our early days of marriage. Do you remember this? She asked, holding it up. It was taken at a park in Chicago during one of our first vacations together. We looked so young, so carefree. Of course, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Amanda sighed deeply, her voice trembling. Natalie told me I'm being selfish, that I'm risking everything for nothing. For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. And what do you think? I asked carefully. She set the photo down and looked at me, her expression raw. I think I've been running away from the one thing that's always been real. You. Amanda's confession hung in the air, fragile yet heavy. For a moment, I let myself hope this could be the turning point. But I knew words alone weren't enough. I've been waiting to hear that, I said, my voice calm but guarded. But Amanda, this isn't something you can fix with an apology or a heartfelt moment. Trust doesn't snap back into place overnight. She nodded, tears streaming silently down her face. I know it'll take time, if you're even willing to give me that. I sighed and sat down in a chair across from her. You need to show me, Amanda, not just with words, actions. Otherwise, we'll both just keep spinning in circles. The next few weeks were awkward, to say the least. Amanda didn't go out on Friday nights anymore, and we began spending time together again. Small things like watching movies or cooking dinner. But the wounds were still fresh. Every now and then, I'd catch her staring out the window, lost in thought, and I wondered if her heart was truly back in it. Meanwhile, I found myself thinking about Jessica more than I should. Our brief lunch had sparked something I hadn't felt in a long time, genuine curiosity about another person. I hadn't acted on it, but the idea lingered like an unspoken possibility. One Saturday afternoon, as Amanda and I were unpacking groceries, she broke the silence. Ethan, do you think we should go to therapy? She asked, her tone tentative. I looked at her, surprised. Amanda wasn't one to suggest outside help. You'd be willing to do that? I asked. She nodded. I know I've been selfish, and I've hurt you, but I want to make this work. I want to understand us. For the first time in months, I saw a glimpse of the woman I had fallen in love with. All right, I said, Let's try it. Our first session with the therapist, Dr. Elaine Carter, was both uncomfortable and enlightening. Dr. Carter was a no-nonsense woman in her early yes, with sharp gray eyes and a calm, authoritative demeanor. She began by having us recount our issues separately. Amanda went first, her voice steady but filled with regret. I felt stuck, like I was disappearing into this role of wife and mother, and I didn't know how to find myself again. I made terrible choices trying to feel alive, and I nearly lost everything because of it. Dr. Carter nodded and turned to me. And you, Ethan? I hesitated before answering. I felt betrayed. Like all the years I devoted to building our life together didn't mean anything to her. I trusted her completely, and when she threw that away, it felt like I'd been living a lie. Dr. Carter leaned back in her chair, her gaze shifting between us. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and right now, yours is fractured. Amanda, you say you want to rebuild. Ethan, do you believe that's possible? I glanced at Amanda, her eyes pleading, and then back at Dr. Carter. I want to believe it. I admit it. But it's hard. In the weeks that followed, therapy became a regular part of our routine. Amanda began making more of an effort, cooking my favorite meals, planning small weekend outings, even leaving little notes of appreciation on the bathroom mirror. Slowly, I started to feel the walls I'd built around myself begin to crack. But one day, as we walked through Chautauqua Park, an unexpected situation put everything to the test. We'd been hiking for about an hour when we came across a distressed couple near the trailhead. Was cradling his wife, who had twisted her ankle badly and was unable to walk. Amanda immediately sprang into action, offering the couple water and calling for assistance. We'll stay with you until help arrives, she assured them. Watching her in that moment, so composed, so compassionate, reminded me of the Amanda I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The Amanda who always put others first, who faced challenges with grace and determination. After the couple was safely on their way to the hospital, Amanda turned to me, slightly breathless. I guess I haven't completely forgotten how to care for people, she said with a small smile. You never did, I replied, feeling a flicker of warmth in my chest. But the road to recovery wasn't linear. One evening, as we sat in the living room watching TV, Amanda's phone buzzed on the coffee table. My stomach churned. Who is it? I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. It's Natalie, she said, quickly silencing the phone. She just wanted to check in. I studied her face, searching for any sign of deception. Amanda, if we're doing this, if we're rebuilding, you need to be completely honest with me. No secrets. I'm being honest, she said, meeting my gaze. I have nothing to hide, Ethan. Not anymore. I wanted to believe her. I needed to. But doubt lingered in the back of my mind like a shadow. Over the next few months, Amanda and I worked hard to repair our relationship. Therapy helped us navigate the difficult conversations we'd avoided for years. Evidence of what we had been through, but not defining of who we were. Despite this progress, I still couldn't shake the lingering doubt. Trust, once shattered, doesn't rebuild itself overnight. And while Amanda seemed genuinely committed to making things right, I often found myself replaying the betrayal in my mind, wondering if her remorse was strong enough to withstand temptation in the future. One weekend, Emily and Lauren invited Amanda and me to lunch at the Copper Plate, a trendy restaurant in downtown Boulder. The girls seemed optimistic, clearly hoping to see signs that their parents were on the mend. But as the meal progressed, Emily's sharp intuition once again surfaced. So, Mom, she began, her tone light but pointed, have you fully retired from your late-night escapades? Amanda's cheeks flushed, and I felt the tension spike at the table. Emily, I warned, my voice firm. What? Emily said, holding up her hands in mock innocence. I'm just making sure she's reformed. Lauren shot her sister a glare. Not the time, Em. Amanda took a deep breath, her voice calm but tinged with guilt. Yes, Emily. Those days are behind me. I've made mistakes, but I'm trying to make amends. Good, Emily said, leaning back in her chair. Because Dad deserves better. Amanda nodded, her gaze falling to the table. I couldn't tell if her silence was out of regret or annoyance, but I appreciated Emily's protective nature, even if it made things uncomfortable. That evening, Amanda and I sat on the back porch, the cool Colorado air brushing against our skin. She sipped a glass of wine while I nursed a beer. The silence between us was companionable, but heavy with unspoken thoughts. "Do you think they'll ever forgive me?" Amanda asked softly. "They love you," I said, staring out at the darkened sky. "But it's going to take time, just like it's taking time for me." Amanda nodded, her fingers fidgeting with the stem of her glass. "I hate that I put all of you through this. I hate that I risk losing everything for nothing." Her voice cracked on the last word, and I turned to her, surprised by the raw emotion in her eyes. "Amanda," I said, "the fact that you're here working on this says something, but we're not out of the woods yet." "I know," she whispered, "but I'm not giving up." A few weeks later, an unexpected event tested our fragile progress. Amanda received a message from Natalie, asking if she could stop by to pick up a box of personal items she'd left behind at Amanda's office. Amanda agreed, and I offered to drive her, not entirely trusting Natalie's influence on my wife. When we arrived, Natalie greeted us with her usual confident smirk. She had always been bold, but tonight, her demeanor was bordering on inappropriate. "Well, Ethan," she said, eyeing me up and down as we entered, "it's good to see you in person. Amanda's told me a lot about you." "Nothing I couldn't guess," I replied coolly, already on edge. Amanda quickly retrieved the box and handed it to Natalie. "Here you go. That should be everything." Natalie lingered by the door, her gaze flicking between us. "You know," she said, her tone teasing, "I always wondered how you two managed to stay together so long. Marriage is hard work, and not everyone has the stomach for it. We make it work because we care about each other, and because we're willing to put in the effort." Natalie raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Effort, right?" I stepped forward, my patience wearing thin. "Is there something you're trying to say, Natalie?" She smirked, holding up her hands in mock surrender. "Not at all. Just making an observation. Good luck to you both." As she closed the door behind her, Amanda let out a long breath. "I can't believe I ever thought she was a friend," she muttered. "She was never your friend," I said. "But I'm glad you see that now." "Thank you for giving me this chance," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I studied her face, searching for any hint of insincerity, but all I saw was vulnerability. "It's not easy," I admitted, "but I'm trying." "So am I," she said, "and I'm not going to stop." The next morning, we decided to hike one of the nearby trails. It wasn't a particularly challenging hike, but it gave us time to talk without distractions. As we climbed higher, the view of the valley below grew more breathtaking, and for the first time in a long while, the silence between us felt peaceful rather than strained. But just as we reached a scenic overlook, we heard a shout for help echoing from the trail below. We rushed back down the path and found a man, likely in his late S, leaning over his unconscious hiking partner. The man explained that his friend had collapsed suddenly, likely due to altitude sickness. Amanda immediately took charge, instructing the man to elevate his friend's legs while I called for emergency assistance. She knelt beside the unconscious hiker, speaking calmly and reassuringly as she checked his breathing. Watching her in that moment, decisive, compassionate, and unshaken, I was reminded of the strength that had first drawn me to her. When the rescue team arrived, the hiker began to regain consciousness, and Amanda stayed by his side until he was safely on the stretcher. As we watched them carry him away, she turned to me, her face flushed from the exertion. "I forgot how good it feels to help someone," she said, a small, genuine smile crossing her lips. "That's who you are, Amanda," I said. "You just lost sight of it for a while." The rest of the weekend was quiet, but meaningful. We spent our evenings talking by the fire, sharing stories from our early years, and rediscovering the small things that had once connected us. By the time we returned to Boulder, I felt like we had taken a significant step forward. Back home, life resumed its usual rhythm, but with a subtle shift. Amanda's actions began to match her words. She was more present, more engaged, and more open than she had been in years. I, too, found myself letting go of some of the bitterness that had weighed me down. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching an old movie, Amanda turned to me and said, "I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" I asked, glancing over. I want to renew our vows, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Not as some grand gesture, but as a promise. To you, to us, to the life we've built. Her words caught me off guard, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. Then I realized that this was exactly what I needed, a tangible commitment, a way to start fresh. All right, I said, a small smile creeping onto my face. Let's do it. Planning our vow renewal became a project that Amanda and I worked on together. It wasn't going to be extravagant, just a small ceremony with close friends and family at a scenic overlook in the foothills outside Boulder. Amanda took the lead in organizing most of it, but she made sure to include me in every decision, from the flowers to the playlist for the evening. Her attentiveness felt genuine, and for the first time in years, I started to believe we could move forward. Our daughters were thrilled when we told them about the vow renewal. Emily, ever the pragmatist, was quick to offer advice on logistics, while Lauren, the sentimental one, burst into tears at the news. I'm so happy for you too, Lauren said, hugging Amanda tightly. This is what I've been hoping for. Emily, however, was more skeptical. Are you sure this is the right move, Dad? She asked me privately a few days later. I mean, what if? I know, I interrupted, not wanting her to finish the thought. But I'm willing to give this a real shot. Amanda's been making an effort, and I think it's worth trying. Emily studied me for a moment before nodding. Okay, just promise me you won't ignore your instincts if things start feeling wrong again. I promise, I said. The day of the ceremony arrived, and the weather couldn't have been more perfect. The sky was a brilliant blue, the sun casting a golden glow over the rolling hills. Amanda looked radiant in a simple ivory dress that flowed elegantly around her, and I wore a crisp navy suit that Emily insisted made me look distinguished. As I stood at the altar, waiting for Amanda to join me, I felt a mixture of nerves and cautious optimism. The past 2 years had been a roller coaster, and while I wasn't naive enough to think a single day could erase all the pain, I was ready to take this step. Amanda walked down the aisle on Lauren's arm, her face glowing with a mixture of emotion and resolve. When she reached me, she took my hands in hers, and for a moment, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. Her vows were heartfelt and raw, a stark contrast to the rehearsed perfection of our wedding years ago. Ethan, she began, her voice trembling slightly. I know I've made mistakes that hurt us. But through it all, you never gave up on me. Even when I didn't deserve it, you stayed. And I promise, from this day forward, to honor that love. To honor you. Thank you for giving me the chance to be better. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye among our guests. My own vows came naturally, though I kept them simple. But we've also shared a lifetime of love, laughter, and joy. Today, I'm choosing to believe in the strength of that foundation. I'm choosing you. As we exchanged rings, new ones to symbolize a fresh start, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in a long time. The reception that followed was intimate and joyful. Our daughters gave speeches that were equal parts heartfelt and humorous, teasing us about our rocky road, but expressing their hope for our future. Even Emily seemed to let her guard down, laughing and clinking glasses with Amanda during a toast. As the evening wound down, Amanda and I shared our first dance as a new couple. The melody of At Last played softly in the background, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were truly dancing as partners, equal, present, and connected. But life is a way of testing even the best intentions. About a month after the ceremony, I received a call from Jessica, the friend I'd reconnected with months earlier. She was passing through Boulder and wanted to grab coffee. I hesitated, knowing how delicate my relationship with Amanda still was, but ultimately agreed. The meeting was innocent enough. Jessica talked about her latest adventures, her work, and the joys of reconnecting with old friends. But at one point, she looked at me with a knowing smile. "You seem lighter, Ethan," she said. "Happier. Like you've found your footing again." "I think I have," I admitted. "Amanda and we're in a better place now." Jessica nodded, her smile softening. "Good. You deserve that." As I left the coffee shop, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt for meeting Jessica without telling Amanda. While nothing inappropriate had happened, I knew that rebuilding trust meant complete transparency. That evening, I told Amanda about the meeting. Her reaction surprised me. "Thank you for telling me," she said, her tone calm. "I want us to be honest with each other, no matter what." And for the first time, I felt like we truly understood what it meant to start over. Things continued to improve between Amanda and me in the months following our vow renewal. We fell into a rhythm, rediscovering the small joys in our marriage. Early morning walks, shared cups of coffee on the porch, and quiet evenings spent cooking together. Our daughter seemed to notice the change too, growing more relaxed during family gatherings. But life is a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. As Amanda and I were preparing dinner, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at the screen and frowned. "Who is it?" I asked casually. "It's Natalie," she said, sighing. "She's asking if I'd be open to meeting for coffee tomorrow. She says she has something important to tell me." I paused, my hand hovering over the cutting board. "Do you want to meet with her?" "I'm not sure. Part of me feels like I should hear her out, but another part of me thinks it's a bad idea." I nodded, considering her response. "Do what you feel is right, but be cautious. Natalie hasn't exactly been a positive influence." The next day, Amanda decided to meet Natalie at a small cafe in downtown Boulder called the Willow Cup. She insisted I didn't need to come along, but I couldn't help feeling uneasy about the meeting. When Amanda returned a couple of hours later, her expression was a mixture of anger and unease. "What happened?" I asked as she walked through the door. She set her purse down and exhaled sharply. Natalie was manipulative as always. She tried to justify her behavior, saying she was just being a good friend by encouraging me to explore. But then she dropped a bombshell. "What kind of bombshell?" I asked, my stomach tightening. Amanda sat down at the kitchen table, her hands clasped tightly. She admitted that she encouraged Carlos to pursue me because she thought it would help me loosen up. Apparently, she thought I needed to escape my boring suburban life. "You stay here? Stunned." "She what?" "I was furious," Amanda said, her voice trembling. "I told her she had no right to meddle in my life like that. I can't believe I ever considered her a friend." Her admission was a bitter pill to swallow. It was infuriating to know how deeply Natalie had inserted herself into our lives, but it also validated some of my lingering suspicions about her role in Amanda's actions. "Are you going to cut ties with her?" I asked after a long silence. "I already did. I told her we're done. I don't need people like her in my life anymore." As unsettling as Natalie's revelation was, it brought Amanda and me closer. It became another reminder of how far we had come and how much we still needed to work on together. One evening, while we were out for dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant called La Bella Vista, Amanda brought up an idea that caught me off guard. Twirling her fork in her pasta, just the two of us, somewhere we've never been. I raised an eyebrow. "A trip?" "Yes," she said, her eyes lighting up. "We've been rebuilding things here, but I think it would be good for us to get away, to focus on each other without any distractions." The idea intrigued me. "Where were you thinking?" "Charleston," she said with a smile. "I've always wanted to see the historic district and the beaches. It's romantic, don't you think?" I smiled, nodding. "All right, let's do it." Our trip to Charleston was everything we needed. The charming cobblestone streets, the colorful houses along Rainbow Row, and the warm ocean breeze created a perfect backdrop for reconnecting. We explored the city's rich history, dined at quaint seafood restaurants, and even took a sunset cruise along the harbor. One evening, as we strolled along the Battery, Amanda slipped her hand into mine. "I feel like we're finally finding our way back," she said softly. "So do I," I replied, squeezing her hand gently. When we returned to Boulder, we felt renewed, as though the trip had given us the perspective we needed to keep moving forward, and a shared commitment to making things work. But there was one more unexpected twist. One afternoon, while sorting through old paperwork in the attic, I came across a letter tucked away in a dusty box. The envelope was addressed to Amanda, but it had never been opened. Curiosity got the better of me, and I hesitated before calling her upstairs. "What's this?" I asked, handing her the envelope. She frowned. "Taking it from me?" "I have no idea," she said, carefully opening it. As she read the letter, her expression shifted from confusion to shock. "It's from Carlos," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What does it say? I asked, trying to